Hey everybody, welcome to Curveball. This is Heather Campbell and I'm here with today's guest who is my first guest that really is my kindred when it comes to backdrop and gallery walls. So I knew the second I saw that, I was like, we are so going to get along because we practically have the same stuff. Okay. So Alexis with me is Alexis Skopos. She is one of those stories that is equal parts heartbreaking and also inspiring. As a teenager, Alexis faced an experience that could have ended everything. She actually attempted suicide. But instead of letting that moment define her, she turned it into a mission to help others. And she built a career in mental health counseling driven by a deep desire to support people through their darkest times. But then came the burnout. Alexis found herself stuck and overworked and completely drained by community mental health. That's when a friend asked her the game-changing random question, why don't you just start your own business? And Alexis oh, sure. Okay, I will, on a whim, not even knowing how much that one decision would completely change her life. Her business, Be Kind to Mind Counseling, took off. Her marriage ended. And through it all, Alexis learned the art of patience and the power of creating life on your own terms, legit. And here's something too, fun fact. She's been writing to a pen pal in prison for over a decade, a relationship that taught her just as much about resilience and mental health as her professional career. Alexis, the most interesting human, welcome to Curveball.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's start with this. As a teenager, you went through a truly profound experience with your mental health. So tell me a little bit about where you were and then how that led you to dedicate your career to helping others in the same space.
Absolutely. So my mom passed away when I was 9, and
honey.
was really, it was really the first trauma, and it just kind of took off from there. Everything kind of went from this picture perfect white picket fence life to shit.
Right.
And it got chaotic. So we moved to Florida from Ohio, and nobody understood. I felt so alone. My dad, bless his soul, he tried, but raising a teenage daughter, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I was so depressed. I was self-harming. I was making poor decisions. I was definitely losing it. So when I was 13, I took a bottle of my medications. And the irony of that is that medication specifically was made that if you overdose, you just get incredibly sick. So
that's amazing.
It is in hindsight, but at the time I was like, are you serious?
Right. You're just oh my gosh. You had this whole plan. You probably were just I can't even imagine being at that moment where you're okay, this is happening. I'm doing it. And then they pull the booby trap on you. Yeah.
Yes. And then I decided, maybe we'll attempt again. And I don't know what the hell I was going to do, but I was holding a knife, and I remember my dad's door opened or something. I heard him, and that kind of stopped it. And, it was really in that moment, I was like, okay, so we're either going to help people never feel this way, or we're just going to end it. And, I decided to use it so that nobody ever feels as alone as I once did. And I think a lot of therapists go into mental health because of their own stuff.
Right.
But truly, that was the catalyst.
Right. And that's such a big thought to have for a young kid. When you see 13-year-olds now, do you just look and just say, that I was carrying you just look back and you have to be thinking wow, I was a very different 13-year-old.
Yeah. I see the joke, when adults called you an old spirit when you were 13, it just means you lost all your dopamine and serotonin, which true.
Right. Oh my gosh. So then you decided though, and I love this. So then what is your first, I wanted you to sort of think back, what is your first act of helping other people? How does that show up
Yeah.
Because I can tell you pretty accurately, I was an idiot when I was 13, so I was not thinking about stuff like that. I was thinking about I'm going to use my babysitting money to get a pair of Adidas, tennis shoes, so tell me about what that looks like.
I think especially that age when I see kids and they're telling me they're depressed. I get it. Especially, it's common for the parent to be like, well, I'll give you something to be depressed about. Look at the world. I'm depressed. Like,
Right.
but, I think my heart goes out to anyone who has ever felt that way at that age, especially. And at that
Right.
age, that's a really big feeling to have. And we don't know how to place that. I had to go to school to learn emotions, but as far as that first kind of helping step, I honestly just kind of survived until I got out of my graduate program, and then I got thrust into community mental health. So that was just kind of that ride.
Right. So what was it about that job? Like, so then is this sort of your dream and you're happy because you sort of said, I sort of, pulled myself through. So were you still struggling with depression all the way through like college and grad school and
Yes. So I was
oh,
actually diagnosed with bipolar 2, which
mm,
is high highs, low lows.
right.
And that is really something that I struggled with most of my life. But grad school was a very big learning experience that you don't have to just deal with the things. You can actually get help. But as far as the community health job, ooh-wee. So I think a lot of us get stuck there because in 2019, when I graduated with my master's degree, I was making like $15 an hour at that community mental health place.
That is just a travesty. Like I have a friend who's a social worker and she makes $60,000 a year. And I'm like, and her job, those jobs are so hard.
Yes.
So
Well,
can you describe so I have a vision of community mental health, but like, what is community? Can you please describe community mental health? So I just completely understand it.
absolutely. So, community mental health, the population I actually loved. It was usually, not always, but usually lower income folks who don't have insurance or, really just can't find a therapist or things. And that honestly is my favorite population. They are wonderful. The issue comes with the way we are treated from higher ups and kind of like the government funding and things.
Mm,
There was one point I was working at a clinic and I had 123 clients on my caseload that I was supposed to see in a month. Some of them 4 times a month, some of them twice a month, some of them once a month, but 123 people on my caseload.
oh my gosh. There's just no way. I mean, you would have to almost feel like a hockey goalie, I would imagine. Like just sort of taking the biggest, most highest priority, like just taking things as they come too. I could see where you would end up being burnt out. So, all right. So tell us about like, so I think that this is hilarious because I love it when just some random conversation you have with someone ends up literally completely 100% changing the entire trajectory of your life. So tell me about this meeting. Who is this magical friend of yours?
Oh my gosh, my magical friend is Ellen. She is incredible, and it's actually an even funnier story. So I had my mid 20s crisis about 2 years ago now. Yeah, it's almost 2 years. And I went back to school to work in cybersecurity because I was like, I'm not a good therapist. I hate this. I'm bad at it. No, 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 no. So I was in the middle of a cybersecurity program when Ellen approached me. She's like, hey, you want to do a private practice? And I actually told her no. I was like, I don't have time. I'm going to school for cybersecurity. I'm done. And I had a really bad day at work. And I was like, it was about a month later. And I called her and I was like, actually, maybe we should do this. And we did. And I mean, it's been an absolutely incredible ride, but it was just so funny because I was hell bent on going back to school for something completely different.
Right. Well, it's really interesting. I was just interviewing somebody. We were talking about the voice in our head that sometimes sounds so reasonable. Like this voice that was like, you know what you should do, Alexis, is you should get into cybersecurity. And it sounds really good, right? Like it sounds good. So then you can start acting on it and you're doing all the things. But really, your original passion was helping people and never helping people feel alone right? Never feeling alone. So you obviously still had that, like I call it the nudge that does not stop nudging. Like I work with so many
Yes.
entrepreneurs who could have 1,000 times, myself included, said, I don't need to do any of this stuff. And that nudge just does not stop nudging. So you went into a private practice with your friend Ellen. Is that what you guys did? And
Yeah.
then what is so we were in the pre-interview, you do some really interesting work. So you specialize in trauma.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about, because I did trauma coaching last summer, and out of anything I've done, therapy, meditation, oh my God, all the reading, retreats, I mean, everything, I will say my trauma therapy was by far the most beneficial thing I did. And I was able to really understand so many things about myself, so much about, it was just amazing. And so talk to me a little bit about your specialty and what that looks like. Cause I think some people, I don't know, trauma, I thought there were people who had things way worse than I did. So therefore I didn't have trauma because people have it so much worse than I do, but that's not true at all.
No, and I mean, just on trauma itself, like it can start in utero. If your mom is going through a very anxious or kind of traumatic time, those same chemicals pump through the baby, and then baby is born with extra cortisol, which anxious child. But as far as what I do, it is called Brainspotting. It was developed by David Grand. He was an EMDR therapist, so they're very similar concepts, but it's instead of EMDR where there's movement, brain spotting is
Right.
a
So
fixed point.
EDMR stands for you'll have to.
Oh boy. Eye movement, yeah. Eye movement desensitization recovery. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
so
that
real
sounds
with
good.
you. My
Yes.
brain is not braining that because I'm
Right.
like brain spotting. We do brain spotting.
Yeah, totally. So that's something though where you put something in front of somebody's eyes and their eyes move. Like it's like you can describe the technique to me.
EMDR is it's very structured, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know too much about what they do, but as far as
Okay.
brain spotting, it's very intuitive and it's very personalized. It's just why I extra love it. It's really using the client's own intuition and the healing capabilities of their brain to rewrite that narrative. But
Right.
the way that it works is I always describe it as, when you're talking to somebody, and I'm doing it right now, and they're looking in a certain direction, that's because that's a brain spot. It is connected to our midbrain from our eyesight, and that is where we hold this little box of information. So the part of brain spotting that we do is we get you activated on the event, which it could be, your trauma from being a kid, or there's something called expansion, where instead of focusing on the negative, we are going to strengthen the positive neuropathway of like, I am loved or whatever. But I go through your vision field with my wand, and usually people feel it somatically, but I'm also checking for reflexes because sometimes the brain, doesn't tell us the thing.
Right.
So once we find that spot, I kind of finesse it, make sure it's the right spot. So we'll go across and we'll go up and down, and we have our spot, and the client, literally, their brain does the processing by itself. I usually don't do a damn thing after except for be attuned and be there for the client on their wild ride.
Amazing. We have so much intelligence in our own body. It sounds almost like muscle testing, right? Like, so you want to look for something that goes linear and then up and down, and then like it's in the spot. That is super cool. And so what does that leap feel like for people? Like because I do know, like, I remember having this one thought, and then I did a lot of tapping. That was my modality that we did with my coach. And I remember like telling her, I said, I wanted to go back. I said, I was really thinking about something that happened when I was like 10 years old. And I said, and I wanted to go back to that feeling. And I said, it was so odd. I couldn't. Like, it was just gone. Like, I kept on trying to like back into like, because it's something like I had thought about for decades. Right. And she was like, well, I fixed the box, or I took something out of the box or something, right? So it is incredible when you rewire your brain like that, that you, it literally is, it's like, it's been resolved. And it's like, you can't, that's how I know, I call it sort of a complete feeling, because that's, you can't go back to it. It is so incredible.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that is 100% the goal. And what people experience, it's always so interesting because it's always wildly different.
Right.
I've had one person, I would go across their vision field, we would hit a spot and they would just start bawling. I've had other people, they can feel it move down or up their body. I've had somebody throw up and they were like, I feel great after. It's such a bizarre thing, and you never know what somebody's going to experience.
Right. That must be amazing. So how does it, talk to me a little bit about the mechanics of what's happening in the brain, like the ability of the brain, because I'm just fascinated by the brain. And I had a brain issue this summer where I get to rebuild my brain. Like, I don't have it's so interesting. Like, I've had injuries before where you're mending and you have muscle memory. And it's really interesting when you don't have muscle memory, like you have to create all new memories. And then to feel your brain, like, you make progress, but then there are sometimes like things you just can't do. Like, I was just in a yoga class that was like a flow yoga class. And I thought, oh, I'm doing so great. And then there were just these places where my brain is like, oh, I know what we're supposed to do, but I just, and it's really sort of cute. Like, when I just am sort of like, oh, you're trying so hard. Like, and then you were just like, okay, like, and I don't know, it's just so interesting to really feel the brain body connection. Like, of course, I don't want anyone to have like brain issues like I had, but I do wish that everyone could really feel how real that is, like the absolute real thing. So what is going on in the brain when we're brain spotting? How does it work and release and I shouldn't say like release and resolve, I guess would be the words, like resolve the trauma.
Yeah. So the bigger part of brain spotting is working with neuropathways. So every time you're saying to yourself something like, I'm dumb, I'm whatever, or
Right.
this trauma happened, but usually like that self-talk, we are strengthening that neuropathway. So for a lot of people, their anxiety neuropathway is strong because every
Mm-hmm.
time you're stressed or anxious, it's getting thicker. But our goal with brain spotting is to either pull a power away from that neuron or strengthening a positive already there neuron. It's just, our brains are so incredible. They know what to do. It's just giving it the safety to do it.
Right. Right.
And the cool thing with brain spotting, just kind of like little tidbit, it's used often with athletes and creatives because it helps work through blockages that they're having as well.
Oh, amazing. So what are some ways people, like, because I think trauma is one aspect, but then it sounds like there are other ways that this can really be helpful for people.
Yes. Actually, I just took brain spotting phase 4 with the founder. Gosh, I think it was last weekend. And he taught us some really cool things. We learned about body spotting, which is, let's say you have an injury. We process it through the injury because there is a belief that pain comes from our brain versus like physicalness. And I don't know.
Right.
But this is supposed to help decrease pain and things. And I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to do it.
So how new is this? Because I've heard about EDMR. I obviously did tapping and things like that. But when you said brain spotting, I was like, that, first of all, I actually called it train spotting, like the movie. I'm like, that sounds like such a cool program. And so you said that's why you started, because you were like, that sounds cool. And then it turned out it was. So like, how new is this?
I believe it's about 21 years old. I think that's what he said.
Okay.
But it started with an athlete. She was having an issue doing a double turn. She was an ice skater. And David Grand did brain spotting with her. And she was able to work through that fear. So I guess kind of back to the original question that I didn't answer. And I'm sorry. It is often used with athletes to have peak performance. And it's also used often with artists to get through creative blockages, writing blockages.
Right.
There's actually a whole setup, is what we call it, for actors who can tune into their characters using brain spotting.
How does that work? That's so interesting.
So it's part of the front loading, which is kind of that conversation we have before I break out the wand and go across your field.
Uh-huh.
Instead of tapping into your personal brain spots, we are tapping into the spots that can, well, I guess it is personal. We are tapping into the brain spots that can connect with that character. And it does kind of, it thrusts you into that experience. It was really cool because at first I was like, I don't know there, Mr. David. And then we watched a demonstration and I was like, oh.
Amazing. So what does this wand look like? Is it like almost like a symphony conductor's, or is it a magic wand with a glitter star in the end? Oh, okay.
It's nothing exciting.
No, it's adorable.
It's amazing what this does, I must say.
That's incredible. So what does it feel like? Like, I used to see this acupuncturist, and she would say, I know when I'm in the right spot because your body will grab the needle. So what does it feel like on your end, the practitioner? Do you feel a jolt? What does it feel like for you as the practitioner when you spot the brain spot in somebody's brain?
I get so attuned. That is such a huge part of it, is that safety. And it's really interesting because I obviously have no idea what they're thinking unless they're being verbal, because you don't have to say a damn thing either, which is cool. But, you know, the looks on their face, I can feel the empathy and things kind of run through my body. So to answer that, I would say just extreme presentness and holding that space. Sometimes I get emotional with them, you know, it's
right.
Did you ever hear of like the red string theory?
What is that?
That's like just where people are super connected by this red string that's invisible. That's kind of what I think about it. When I'm with them,
right,
we have this string through the camera that we are so connected and safe that this person can explore kind of those dark closets in their head.
Right, right. And they don't really even have to talk, do they? That's what I think is so amazing. So there are some people who are just like talk therapy, and I understand, like, there's not one modality for every single human being that's going to work for everyone. And a lot of people, I think, especially for younger people too, like you were saying, you know, experiencing such a loss at age 9 when your brain is still developing, right? And I can see how it's easy for a kid to get lost in the shuffle. People don't know how to relate to you. And then you don't even have like the world experience or your brain really even understanding at this point. Like, you're just starting to understand how your actions affect other people, right? It's just such an interesting time. And I just think that when things happen at that age, like, it is such a superset, like so much is cooking in your brain at that point. And I can see where all of those things, like the limiting beliefs, the you know, the good and the bad, like the good habits and also the limiting belief things too, you know, that you can. And it's just, I think what's interesting too is that our nervous system is there to protect us. We were talking about this in the pre-interview, but it is like so far off to the, like when we're stimulated or something happens, we're triggered. It is like so far off to the races. And this brain spotting helps to like slow that roll. I get right.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with like fight or flight and fear is it's entirely necessary. It is your brain trying to protect you from experiencing something that you felt before. However, the issue becomes when this perceived tiger is in the room and it's actually, you know, a sweet little puppy. Our amygdala doesn't always register that.
Right, right, exactly. And it can be big too, like, because it served a purpose, right? I sort of feel like when I really feel like a limiting belief, I can sort of see it. When I'm journaling, I'll write a little note to it just saying, hey, limiting belief, I can see you there. You're exposing yourself to me really in a very sort of objective way, which means I know I'm about to release it. It doesn't mean like, then what happens is the next one comes up right after. So, but it's really pretty amazing. So I know what that feels like. And so I'll just say, like, I want to thank it because it worked really hard for me. You know, like I said, I know you're my creation and you helped me at some point in my life, but I'm good now. So you've done your job and now it's time to go, but I'm not kicking you out, but I know you're getting ready to go. And I just want to thank you so much. And then sometimes a few days later, sometimes it's like a couple of weeks later, but I have this almost like this epiphany where as it's leaving, it reveals itself to me. And then it's like gone like a vapor. And it's just, I don't, how does, what, that's like a new neural pathway. That's that experience too. It's just, the brain is amazing. I've interviewed almost 20 people for Curveball so far, and so many people in the health space, helping people not burn out, helping people stay, being unbusy, like all these different things. So many people had these warning signs where they either had like a thought or their body was starting to do something, sort of giving them warning signals that they ignored for a really, really long time. And what's so interesting is I know what that feels like too. When my body was degrading because of my brain injury, it's like you know something's going on, but you just don't know what it is until it gets to a point that you're like, oh, this is like not natural. But like how many warning signals we have. So how does somebody know? Because sometimes like we just act on such impulse, right? It feels so pure and so real. So how does somebody know that they have trauma or they have something that could be brain spotted?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the field, we look at kind of like two different kinds of trauma. Trauma is really defined as something happening and being outside of your window of tolerance. So we have little t traumas that, okay, so if I broke my foot, that could be life shattering to me. But if you broke your foot, you might be like, okay, no biggie. So it's things that, could be traumatic to you, but to somebody else, a lot less,
Right.
I guess, important, not important, but you know what I mean. But a big T trauma is really the things that I think any person would say, like, oh, well, that's traumatic.
Right.
So, yeah, death, transitions, a lot of those kind of bigger things. But I mean, again, I feel bad saying that. I don't want to minimize if somebody feels something, is a big T trauma, but it's such a personalized
Right.
emotion, and that's what makes it so difficult. But as far as, identifying if something, especially negative, impacts you to a degree that it kind of changes your functioning or your day to day, I would say that's probably trauma.
Yeah, that's, I think, a really good description of it too. I think I used to think that I didn't have it, or I didn't have the right to have it because people have things like a lot worse. And then I just realized, then I grew up in an environment where you weren't allowed to share that, right? So it's like, you sort of suck it up and sort of go through it. And so I just find it so comforting to know that, because I just know that there were times like, I don't know, I would get like flash, and I would just be like, and I would just ride that wave. And then I would just feel so bad afterwards too. Cause I would be like, oh, you did, not my best, And so I think that but the ability, knowing that is the ability to heal. I guess what I think it is like, with trauma, I feel it's like something is not safe anymore. Like something that was safe is just not safe the way it should be. And so it changes your perspective in the world and how you move through it too. Like for a long time, like I really protected, oh God, my two words, proving and protection, or just.
Absolutely.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh. So I would love to talk to you about your pen pal relationship.
Okay.
Who is your pen pal?
Her name is Jenny, and at this point, it's been 12 years. When I was 18, I was really into true crime. I mean, I still am, but I was a little more, I guess, ambitious, or I guess just open then. I don't know. Looking back, I was like, okay, Alexis, I'm glad it worked out the way it did, but maybe that wasn't your best route. Right. But I found her on Black and Pink Pen Pals, and we've been writing each other for the last 12 years. I have a big box under my bed of all of our letters, but she is a very incredible woman who unfortunately got caught up with the wrong person, and they put her in jail for attempted murder. And I did not know that
Yeah.
until we had talked for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I honestly feel like I know her more than some of the people in my actual life because we've talked about the things, like truly,
Right.
like, and hand letters are so personalized as well.
Oh my gosh. I was a pen pal with my grandmother, like literally right up till she died. Like we were just, and I
Oh,
have all her letters saved from yeah, like I love a good letter. That is so beautiful. I have a friend who has a pen pal for somebody who's on death row, and because she's a
okay.
Buddhist, and she's like, I have to see, like, Buddhists are interesting because they're like very compassionate, but they're also like really disciplined. So she was like, I have to see if I really can love everybody. And she has this beautiful relationship with this person who's had a lot of like, growth in his life where, he's serving his time, but, just it's really a beautiful story too.
Yeah. I mean, people change, and I think that was a really beautiful thing I've learned through this. Is everybody going to
Mm,
change? Absolutely not. But
right,
I don't think it's fair to judge people, especially who are incarcerated, for mistakes they made 10, 20, 30 years ago, because
right.
people do change. And attempted murder, that's not a great charge, but I feel like I know her now and she's a beautiful human. She just really messed up.
Right, right. And I can appreciate that that can happen. I remember I'm a big public radio geek, and there's this thing called StoryCorps where people go in and they talk to each other. And there was this story about this family where their daughter was murdered. And the father became almost like a father figure to the person who murdered their daughter. Like, and it was the most beautiful story of like forgiveness and acceptance, and it was just wild, like nothing you would ever expect. But that capacity to forgive and then the healing that can come from it was, and hearing
Yes,
this man talk about this person, like who he really genuinely cared for, but who did something at the most unspeakable thing you could possibly imagine. And it's just amazing.
it is. It
You
is.
are such a nice person, and you are so sweet to interview too, just because you're so affirming. You just have like this beautiful smile on your face. So,
Thank
Alexis,
you.
if people are like, I want to learn more about this brain spotting, I want to work with Be Kind to Mind counseling, how do people get in touch with you?
Yes. So you can search bekindofmind.com. That's our website. And we have a great blog. We have free resources. So I really encourage you to check it out. But also, if you have questions, I am more than happy to answer. You can email me at alexis at bekindofmind.com.
Love that.
Um, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have about brain spotting, mental health, or really anything.
I love that. And I love the name of your business, Be Kind to Mind. And the fact that that domain was available just means it was like a divine, just the fact that you guys were able to come up with that like in the year like 2019 is amazing. Like that. So I love it when stuff like that, the path just, you're like, yeah, let's Ellen, let's do this. And then the whole path just like unfolds in front of you. I love that.
Well, the funny thing is she actually bought the domain for this and had it named years ago. We just started the business in 2023 as far as the actual private practice, but
Amazing.
she somehow had this bought years ago. And I was like, so do we rename it? Do we keep it the same? She's like, I don't know. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I like the ring to it.
I love it. I think it's really, from a naming perspective, I think a solid name is like if you can walk into an empty room and there's just a table with one piece of paper, which is the name of your business, if people can get a pretty, like a decent understanding of what it is that you do, like it's clear that I think that that is really, really well done. Yeah. And go with brain spotting. I had no idea. This is so incredible.
It is super cool. I am definitely biased, but I do encourage
Be
y'all to check it out.
biased. Yeah, I would say be biased. It seems like it's an amazing modality. And I love anything that's like, not like a cheat code, but you know what I mean? Like sort of a fast track. And because I did years of talk therapy, which was really helpful, but you sort of, I think that trauma work like this is way more looking out through the front windshield as opposed to looking in the rearview mirror, which I really, really, really like about it.
I agree. We're more reactive than proactive, and that's a big issue.
Yeah, completely. So, Alexis, thank you so much for saying yes to Curveball. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. You are an absolute gem. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.